See, the Shen stuff was enough in this week's episode of Total Fantasy Knockout to be memorable, because the tension of love has been there for a while. It very much feels like he's so enthralled with Jingoji, and to see the lack of consent and the build-up to the massage as they're competing who's hotter, to then ending with the Church of the Goddess and how the fears of this man came so true. The spitting image of frat boys' summer vacation and how you have to wear the skankiest of bathing suits to get into this section usually. And to see my man pick up a sister and almost break her spine Bane style, this show you just can't make up. Like, I think there's so many images in any particular episode that if you were to just screenshot and show someone who's yet to start this gem of a show, they would say, what in the actual hell am I looking at, and I gotta see more, even if they think it's the dumbest looking thing ever. This episode was fantastic. I would go as far to say, new comedy high point for the show. Shen is a character who has a lot of mystery and seemingly is an assassin given everything that was being presented. But the idea that we competed against him in this episode for so long, not for anything of like trying to kill Jingoji, not trying to kill Tachibana, but to finally have someone compete and be able to say, Tachibana, I don't like how squishy you are. I don't think you're cute. I think you're repulsive. And clearly the person who he is attracted to is Jingoji himself. And to see that level of like rivalry, that was so unexpected, because there's been so many times where like Tachibana has tried to say, oh, I don't care about Jingoji, I don't care about this or that. But very much the kind of will they, won't they romance that has been blossoming here. To see that level of like, oh my god, because she just continues to strip down more, trying to prove how cute or at the very least appealing she is, as he's insulting her appearance, and my boy is getting beyond a nosebleed. He was having like a brain aneurysm or something. He was about to be put on life support just looking at her. And I love the idea that for both of them, they very much see it as like, oh, see, he very much prefers me. And just that type of comedy is so well done, because it is a very simple premise on paper, but when you see and you kind of got to know these characters long enough, we understand that Jingoji very much has some feelings for Tachibana, and Tachibana very much is having some feelings for Jingoji. Shen is an oddball in the equation because he very much seems attracted to Jingoji, but we don't know his true ulterior motives, if he does have any, and to have him throw a wrench in the equation to basically try to force Jingoji's hand to admit who he truly loves or at least is attracted to the most was just comedy gold, as you have so many like perfect faces. I mean, you could take any random shot of Jingoji in this episode and probably have a great thumbnail, if I'm being honest. And to see the idea that he very much was just like building it up to, you're tired and I wanted to give you a massage. I honestly thought like when this scene here popped up where like you have to ask for consent, I was like, okay, what are we building up to? Because I can't be the only one who thought it was going to be a little more than just a massage. It very much gave me a, oh my god, Jingoji, keep your pants on vibe. And then to see him just do like these presses to relieve the tension. We've known Jingoji's been overworking himself for some time, but it was very interesting to see how he gave a laxative to her so she would just go shit her brains out, as then she'd be out of the equation and he could hopefully basically knock him out to the point of giving him a massage to recover because, you know, the lovers quarrel, I guess. Just absolutely fantastic, and to see the ongoing gags, which I really enjoy, like the idea of planting people into the ground like they're a vegetable. It just never fails to impress. But then when they transition into the temple stuff and how normal she appeared at first glance, and you have these like over-exaggerated imaginations of Jingoji, of thinking what it was going to be, to then seeing what they're supposed to wear and how forceful she was. I honestly wasn't expecting them to get mad about the mark of the goddess. I thought it would be something praised, like they'd be cheering her on and carrying her off like she was royalty. So just to get that build up in the episode to then end with someone of royalty saying, don't you dare touch them, like they literally were summoned by the goddess, was a pretty shocking turn of events after having such a ridiculous situation. Using your hair to create these chains, and he's breaking through these chains, grabbing people by the necks, basically snapping spines left and right. And it was just such an odd scene to have someone in a business suit, and then you have all these like frat boys and frat girls who are just like just going with the flow, and you just have her just standing in the distance realizing like, I didn't need to put this shit on, did I? He literally put his in his pocket. And the absurdity to this show never fails to impress. Like, seriously, this show is without a doubt the funniest thing I've seen in the anime medium. It just hits all the right notes for me. And just when you think you've seen it all, an episode like this comes around and says, you haven't seen nothing yet, and there's still so much more insanity left to come. I'm really glad, though, that they actually have expanded the side cast. I mean, we had Wannabe Kirito, who's been a great addition in the prior episodes, and now we have Shen, someone who really, I don't think many of us were probably expecting to be anything other than maybe a one-episode character, because after he kind of got planted into the ground after Jingoji's trying to find Tachibana, I wasn't expecting him to stick around. And now that they're giving more mystery on him being seemingly an assassin and what that means for the world and things like that, has me pretty interested. But I enjoy the fact that even though there is that level of like ominous air surrounding him, I'm really appreciative of the fact that he actually has just as fun of a personality as the main duo. I think Wannabe Kirito was amazing, right? It was just like an interesting parody, and honestly, it was fun seeing like what he was able to do unexpectedly, like slashing buildings in half at a moment's notice, or unexpectedly summoning his goddess and being worshipped like the king. But I love the idea of Shen just being someone who has that air of mystery, but simply is just very much in love with Jingoji, it feels like, and how that kind of throws a wrench into the will they, won't they that we've been having to experience kind of up until this point. This show is amazing. I think anyone who's made it 8 episodes into this show expects it to be so wild, you can't possibly begin to explain why it's so funny to someone potentially looking at a random screen grab and being like, that just looks like, why would you watch that? But seeing how they use their actual story to build up into those moments not only makes it interesting as a story, but just amazing as slapstick comedy to boot. I think given the fact that they did introduce yet again another like a royal member, or at least someone of like very high authority into this world, I'm very curious if she's going to have like a hidden quirk to her personality. Is she going to be someone as psycho as what we just saw in the church? Or is it going to be like one of the more normal situations that this show will have going for it? Because normal typically would mean boring in a show like this, but normal could also kind of relieve that tension, so it's not just like always trying to one-up itself in its comedy. Shen kind of like was that in a lot of ways, as well as Wannabe Kirito, depending on the circumstances, but they both have had such absurd comedy that I think it might be refreshing to have someone being a bit more normal. But if she turns out to be just as psycho or maybe even a yandere, I ain't going to be complaining on that either. I mean, of course, I love this show. I'm going to praise it probably all the way to episode 12 and hopefully into a season 2, but thoughts if you have any, because I think there's 2 equally memorable jokes in this episode. The first kind of being the main star, which was the whole Shen rivalry building up into what I thought was going to be a sex scene, and honestly, the way they directed it, I think it kind of was, to then the reveal of the goddess's kind of like temple church worship and how just horny it actually turned out to be. What did you think? What was your favorite point in the episode? Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.